what I want to talk, somebody this week was talking about, I either heard it or read it, their confidence in their meditation practice. And so I was thinking about that. And what that got me to thinking about, it always does when I hear confidence, is the idea of faith or trust in the practice. And that talking about papancha and proliferation of thought, that gets me thinking about one of the Buddha's teachings, which is the 5 spiritual faculties, the first of which is faith. And the Buddha taught basically the same thing over and over and over again, but he taught in so many different places to so many different people that he offered different avenues to come to the teachings, to come to the Dharma. And this list of 5 is just another way to understand what we're doing here. And so I just wanted to offer those because I find it really helpful to have these different kinds of reflections on really the path that we're all on. And so the 5 spiritual faculties are, and you've probably heard many of these before: faith, which is actually not really often spoken about, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And so I'm going to talk about these a little bit. And these are qualities that we develop to move towards liberation. And I've often, these 5 faculties are often called the way of wisdom. And wisdom, I found this definition of wisdom that was offered by Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo. I don't know if you know who she is. She's this wonderful woman. She's a Tibetan nun. And she practiced in a cave for 12 years. And she even has a book about it. And the interesting fact about that is, and it was in an area, I think it was in the Himalayas, an area where there was a lot of caves, or a lot of monks and nuns practicing in different caves. And she said, you get cave envy. You think you're going to go to a cave, you're that there, and it's like, okay, now I'm here. But then you're like, man, if I had that cave, then it would really be good for my practice. So that's just a point to show it's like, there's always something, and it's never anything out there. The practice is inside. Anyway, she's great. So she says that wisdom means to see things as they really are, which is not how we usually see things. You know, we don't see things as they are. Our minds are clouded by concepts, judgments, ideas. We're conditioned beings, things we've heard, ideas we've developed. And so when we don't see things as they are, as the veils of our delusion begin to thin, then we begin to see things more clearly. So that's wisdom. That's where we're headed to. It's like equanimity, this clarity, this capacity to be present without needing it to be a particular way. And so the first piece is faith. And faith can be a really problematic word for a lot of people because of religious, background and stuff. Oftentimes it means you have to believe this because I said so. And so I like also the word trust. I trust the practice, or I trust what it is. And the Buddha said that blind faith is useless. What did he say? It means that one believes what one is told without personal investigation. And that's not what he talked about at all. In fact, adherence to rites and rituals is something that one loses as one moves towards enlightenment, towards liberation. And so in fact, when he was dying, all of his disciples were saying, what are we going to do when you die? And he said, I've been teaching for 45 years. I've left you all the things you need to know. Ehipasiko, find your own way with this. And so blind faith is kind of the opposite of that. It's like I said, in fact, the Kalama Sutta is another example of this, where he says, see what leads you towards liberation or what leads you towards suffering. And that is the way to go. Find your own way with this. Because it's not, we're all different people. He offers all these different ways, but we all have different biographies and experiences, and we struggle in different ways. So we have to tend to our own experience and our own journey. So that's what faith is. And when I came to practice, I had no clue. I really didn't know what was to expect. I didn't know what was going to happen. I heard for years, this is, my meditation is good, blah, blah, blah. I'd seen, all the Maharishis and this over the years. And I tried different teachers and I went here and there and I didn't have a clue. And then I read books about, this. I read memoirs. I love memoirs. I love biographies, especially about people who struggle and go, gosh, if they could do it, maybe I can do it. And so I had this trust. I didn't even label it in hindsight. It's like, oh, I trusted that there would be something if I tried meditation, because I kept coming back. And then I found a teacher and I started sitting. I mean, I just went to somebody's class and it really resonated and I just kept going back to the class. And then, I hoped it would work. And then all of a sudden I started experiencing it. I started experiencing some changes, some stillness. I started recognizing the noble truths. The first noble truth, there is suffering. There is this discontent. There is dukkha. And the second noble truth is that it's our craving for pleasure all the time, our craving for it to be good. And so to begin to see that, even if it wasn't in the moment, sometimes it's like yesterday, it's like, man, yesterday was a rough day. Oh, I was stuck in that idea that it had to be, I had to have that relationship or I had to have that outcome. And recognizing it's my attachment, my expectations. And to begin to kind of chip away at those, that's where the path to freedom is. And the more we have these shifts and changes, the more it builds the trust, the faith, that if I continue walking down this path, I'll continue experiencing the same results. Perhaps what, used to make me nuts doesn't make me nuts anymore. A little bit. Because we know how that changes. How come that didn't piss me off yesterday, but it does today? Those types of things. And then we investigate. Oh, okay. Because I was attached to something today, but not yesterday. So we begin to have a little clarity. And then the second faculty, and these are not linear, they're just in a list, like none of these teachings are specifically linear, even the Eightfold Path, all the different qualities support each other. And once you get to the end, you're not done. It's this continual moving and going and doing and balancing. So effort is the next piece, and it's very much energy. Effort is very much like the Eightfold Path, wise effort, recognizing when we're caught up in something and being willing to release. And I have often heard people ask teachers, how much is the right amount of effort? And they, how much effort? And they said, just enough, which is, pisses you off. Anyway, but we have to, again, find our own way with that, because I bet, I know I'm a striver. So I'm like, I'm going to bear down and like, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this. And some of us are like, I don't have to do so much. I'll get it. And so to begin to recognize how we show up and just like, oh, maybe I can let go a little bit, or that one who's like kind of lackadaisical can bring a little bit more effort. Finding the balance is really important. They talk about Ananda, who was the Buddha's main attendant. And after the Buddha died, there was this big council of monks who are going to talk about what's next and the teachings. And they said only folks who have achieved enlightenment are welcome. And the Buddha, Ananda had not attained enlightenment by that time. And so they said, and they wanted him to be there, but they said, you can't come because you're not enlightened. But he had this memory. And so he had memorized everything the Buddha said, so he could recite it and they could write it down eventually. Anyway, so he was struggling the night before the council, and he was like sitting there going, and he wasn't getting enlightened. Then he realized that was too much. And then he stopped and he said, you know what? I'm just going to relax a little bit. And from the time, and he said, I'm just going to lay down. And from the time he was sitting up till the time he laid down, that's when he achieved enlightenment. So the story goes. So it's just the practice of just not, finding your own way with it. It's like, I guess, riding a surfboard. You have to, balance a little this way, a little that way. I wouldn't know. I never stood on a surfboard in my life. But I imagine it would be. And another one of the faculties is mindfulness, which is the foundation of everything. Because if we're not mindful, where are we? We're not paying attention. We're driving past our off-ramp. We're saying things to people maybe we don't want to say, or not saying things we should say. We're not connected to our own experience. I remember years ago, I went for a job and I kind of knew I would get it, but I walked into the place and said, "Oh man, you don't want to work here." It was one of those, my gut was like, "Ugh." But I'm like, I'm going to ignore that. And then I took the job and it was horrible and I quit after a few months, but it's because not paying attention. We push away our experience and do instead what we think we should do, or what our brain is telling us, or our habits are telling us. This means that, all those kinds of things. But mindfulness is like, what is this? What's really happening? So we need to have this foundation of mindfulness, knowing, recognizing awareness, recognizing that it's here. It's the foundations of mindfulness. It's as simple as coming back to the breath, coming back to the body. Is this pleasant? Is this unpleasant? What emotions are here? Oh, jealousy. Somebody got something that I wanted. Oh, jealousy's here. If we're not paying attention, those emotions can be running our lives. So to have the awareness, we can say, oh, here's some anger. I don't have to act from it. I don't have to let it to take over. I can just let it be. Hi, anger, have a seat. And then one of the next qualities is concentration, which is, again, a factor of the Eightfold Path, but it's also concentration sometimes has the idea of like, just, again, that focus, but instead it's more, and I've heard a lot of teachers use this phrase instead, a collectedness of mind, a steadiness. So there's a steadiness, again, that balance that comes with this practice of beginning to see clearly. The mind is, I read somewhere, I can't remember where I got this, but it says when there's this right samadhi is concentration in the Pali, the mind should feel light, energetic, free. There's no striving to focus. There's no blocking things. They're just present. What is this? Not even the asking, but just fully aware, fully in the moment. And Tenzin Palmo said, the nun said, the first thing to learn is how to quiet the mind, relax the mind, and bring awareness to the front so that we are conscious of what we are doing when we are doing it without all the commentary. We're just, when we're brushing our teeth, we're brushing our teeth. Thich Nhat Hanh has a book, Mindfulness in Each Step, I think it is. It's a very small one. It's about mindfulness, but his chapters are, I might have talked about this a few weeks ago. His chapter headings are like waking up, taking a shower. It's like how to be present as we go through our day. Because I said earlier, we're not here to get good at meditation. It's about being present. Like when you're doing this, know you're doing it. That's mindfulness. And then the last of the faculties is wisdom. Know what's real, not just what we want to be real. If you have this discernment, a mind that's free from our conditioning, free from the habit energies that have driven us. A mind that understands the characteristics, understands impermanence, understands dukkha, understands all these different things, understands that we're conditioned beings. It's a mind that holds the beautiful qualities. The Buddha he talked in a lot of suttas that through insight, and insight is clear seeing, which is clarity, wisdom. The mind, the body, heart mind that's imbued with metta, loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity. It's this natural arising from this practice. There's this wisdom, this clarity. I know Tan Jeff has written something, Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who is a monk who has a monastery outside of San Diego. And he talks about how when you're new to practice, they say, trust your gut. You probably shouldn't trust your gut when you're new to practice, because it's still all entangled in habit and conditioning and seeing things and wanting things and not wanting things. It takes some time, it takes some clarity. And then when the clarity arises, then you can begin to have this sense of, oh, this is the wise thing to do. This is what makes sense. And in fact, that's part of wise effort. Wise effort is recognizing when you're caught up in something that's not wise or skillful or wholesome, and to bring yourself back. Be willing to let go of those have tos, want tos, if onlys, and come back to what's right here. What's this moment? What's this experience? And cultivate the wholesome qualities. Begin to recognize what's wise and skillful. So there's this discernment. And then the other thing, as I mentioned, the faculties aren't linear. They work together. There's somebody who wrote, I can't remember, somebody who lived a little time after the Buddha. He's described the 5 spiritual faculties as like a chariot, where the head horse is mindfulness leading the way. And then the next pair is what? Faith and wisdom, that they work together. So you have this faith, or this trust that says, okay, I believe this, but wisdom is the clarity, the discernment. So they balance each other, so that you're not just blind faith being, I'm believing this because they said so, or I'm believing this because I want it to be this way, which happens. It's like, if you've ever listened to somebody say something, if you're talking to somebody and they tell you something and you start mind reading and you're not actually believing the words that are coming out of their mouth, you're saying, oh, you might be saying that, but I know what you really mean. That's, I want to believe a particular thing. What you're saying makes it, you did a really good job, but you think you suck. So you're like, oh, they're just telling me that, but they don't really mean it. I'm talking from experience here. So it's like not having a really hard time hearing particular things. And so instead, that's, that attachment to belief. I'm no good, therefore they can't say anything good about me. But if we, then the wisdom, the clarity starts chipping away at that messaging you got as a kid. And you can start believing things. Oh, thank you. So then that's that faith and wisdom, that trust and wisdom balance each other. And then the other two are energy and collectedness, the steadiness, the effort. And this is, we think, and we want this so much in our lives, to get somewhere and then be done.
Yes.
Exactly. Can I be done? And I think maybe when we attain enlightenment, perhaps, I wouldn't know. I'm not speaking from experience in that realm, but I am recognizing that, but what it is we have to constantly be paying attention. That's why mindfulness is this deep foundation of so much. We have to be willing to be aware, paying attention. Oh, sometimes we get a little bit off kilter. And so I'm stuck a little bit in striving. Maybe I can let go a little bit. If I just sit 5 more retreats, then I'll get there. And I can't afford retreats, so I'm going to sell my furniture. That kind of thing. We get into these crazy places. And so, come back from that striving. Maybe I can leave off a little bit. So we have to really learn to balance these things. We're not, we might arrive at some point, but I haven't arrived yet. And you've probably heard me say it a lot. I'm not dead, so I'm not done. I may not be done by the time I die, but I'm going to continue walking in that direction because I've seen the results of this practice over these decades. I was talking about this the other night. I teach a Zoom class every week, and I was giving this talk the other night, and somebody was saying that they were listening to a talk by Joseph Goldstein, who, if you know, he's been teaching for so many years. What does he have, a 60-year practice or something, over 60 years? And he said he can get into those moments where it's like, this is, I'm not getting this, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But then he'll stop and he'll have the perspective, whether you've been practicing for 60 years or 60 days, or is there a change? You may not see it when you're actually in meditation because your head can still be doing what it's doing. But is there a change in your behavior? Is there a change? I like to think of it. Is there a change in your relationship to reality? Is there a change in your relationship to your mind? Are you not going along for the ride all the time? That's the invitation. That's the practice. It may seem as if nothing's changed, but is that actually true? And the invitation of all these, and Joseph Goldstein tells this other story that I think is really great. He was, I don't know whether he was in Burma or Thailand, but had been in a monastery there for a while, and he felt this real sense of ease. There was this samadhi, this collectedness of mind that was just really persistent and there, and he felt really good. And then he came back to the States to visit his family for a while. And when he went back to the monastery, his head was just like all over the place. And he was like, I gotta get back, I gotta get back, I gotta get back. Instead of recognizing, oh, right now it's like this. This is the practice in this moment. That was then, this is now, and we work with what's right here instead of ideas of shoulds and have tos and if onlys. So let yourself be right where you are. And I invite you to reflect. This might be a useful list. This may not be a useful list. Maybe something stands out. It's like, oh, I'm a striver. Maybe I need to ease off a little bit, or maybe I need to kick it up a notch, whatever it is. How do these work in our daily lives? Mindfulness. Can I stay mindful when I'm brushing my teeth? Can I stay mindful when I'm driving my car? Because I still do that. I get daydreaming in my car. It's like, oh, how did I, where am I here already? Or those types of things. And thankfully, the habit of something was paying attention. But to really, and to recognize we're not going to be 24/7. But and it's not about not thinking about the future. It's not thinking about the past, but we know when we're thinking about the future. We know when we're thinking about the past, when we get together with friends and reminisce or make plans to do something. That's intentional. But it's when we're lost there all the time that it's not beneficial, it's not helpful. So those are my thoughts. That's my offering on one of the teachings. And trust, energy, effort, mindfulness, collectedness of mind, wisdom. How do they show up in your life? How do you move through the world with them? How can you bring them into your life? So those are my thoughts, my friends. And as always, I'm always so grateful for your kind attention. And I hope this has been of some benefit. And now I'm happy to hear if there's any questions or comments or thoughts. So anyway, so thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're going to be here again next Sunday at 10:30. And also, I mentioned before, we've got Tuesday evening at 6:30 online, the Just Sit on Wednesday evening, and the Metta practice on Fridays at 4:30. So remembering that we don't just practice for our own benefit, but we practice for the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy, May all beings be free. Thanks, everyone. It's so good to see you.